so great, I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't nobody here just the same. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes?
Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of This Just In. I'm Marsha Boyce, and with me, the gang is all here. It seems like a while that all three of us have been here together. So good night, gentlemen. How is everybody doing?
I'm well, trying to just keep my head above water, but you know how it is. Still have a lot of sports to watch and consume, so I'm great.
It's been a sad time, as both y'all would know. First, with the passing of local great coach, and that's in athletics, Frank Blackman, who is best known for his time at Combermere School and also being the close coach of our Olympic medal winner, Obadeli Thompson. And then soon after that, the NBA family was hit hard once again with the passing of Elgin Baylor, former Lakers great and Clippers executive. So to both families of the deceased, we want to give our deepest condolences, and because as you know, these are indeed hard times.
Indeed, very much so. Our condolences to both families and friends at this time. And gentlemen, tonight we're going to go with an all NBA show, from top to bottom, because there's a lot happening in the NBA. And you kind of expect that as we head toward the playoffs, things kicking up a bit. So, Neil, it's your time now to shine. We're going to start with you and put you in the hot seat because the LA Lakers are in a spot of bother, if you can say, Their two best players injured, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, joining him on the sidelines with a high ankle strain, listed as out indefinitely, Neil, your thoughts. Can the Lakers go another month without both of these guys?
We could talk about something else. No?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, I'll let you know in preparation for this show, and I was talking to Justin about it. This is going to be a rough month for the LA Lakers. So the Lakers are in third right now. What's their record? 20-15. They lost of the last 10, lost 6. They've won 6 of the last 10. Out of the last 10, they're 6-4 the last 10. Tonight, Marc Gasol is out. Obviously, LeBron. Obviously, AD, Jared Dudley, who anything. But I was diving in and serious issues. Now, over the next month, right? I estimate about 16, 17 games, right, depending on where you want to cut off this month. In that time, twice, the Celtics, the Bucks, the Nets, the Clippers, the Jazz twice, and I mentioned the Heat already.
No, you haven't mentioned.
So essentially,
no.
Right. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we're looking at out of the next 16, 17 games, we're looking at 13 losses. No, not 13. Sorry, my 9. It was all doom and gloom. 9. Now,
so
what I am hoping
in your squad members, none at all.
Well, I'm gonna get to that. Forgive me if I'm a bit low key, right? But it's gonna be rough, right? So, what do you have? You have at the absolute best we can do over the next month is possibly 8-8 would look sweet, 7-9 would look really, really, really good, right? Because obviously we got to play the Magic, we got to play the Pelicans, we got to play some lesser teams. But the problem is that our team is comprised of a lot of role players, a lot of good role players. However, they're all role players. We have no definitive leader. We have who's our leading scorer outside of Kyle Kuzma, 15 points per game?
No, I think
no other player.
I think that probably would be Montrezl Harrell. I think I'm not too certain. No.
No. Montrez averages about 12 points a game. No. Right? We have problems, dog. We have Kyle Kuzma is averaging 15 points a game. Dennis Schroeder is averaging 14 points a game. Contavious Caldwell Pope is what, 11 points a game or something like that. Point is that we do not have any scoring. We have no size. We have no scoring. We have no speed. We have substandard shooting. Like, when I tell you that this is going to be a rough month, it is going to be a rough month. We have no rebounding. We have nobody to.
Saying that the Lakers are essentially a two-man team, essentially.
Well, we all know
It
it's top
sounds that
heavy.
way.
We've said it. We've said it several times on this show. I've said it. It's a very top heavy team. The buck stops after Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Yes, we have really good, talented players like Talon Horton Tucker. He brings a little energy off the bench. We have Damon Jones, who brings a little energy off the bench. We have Montrezl Harrell, who brings a lot of energy off the bench. We have players, right? The Morris Twain. We have guys that can facilitate and work around two top players in the NBA in terms of from inside to outside. LeBron James, Anthony Davis. However, what we have here, boys and girls, is we have nothing. We have who's our dominant low post threat is Montrezl Harrell at 6'7". We have an aging Marc Gasol who is injured because of conditioning tonight. Let me repeat what I just said. He is injured due to conditioning.
Wow. So you're basically saying a man is missing games because he's old.
So then all that telling me is that he ain't recovering for what he got. That's what he got. Old age is what he got. So when you look at everything that we have and you look at the pieces that, especially if you look at where the points are coming from, yes, we have Kyle Kuzma, wing player. We have Dennis Schroeder, wing player. We have what's his name? KCP, wing player. Shoot, even Alex Caruso, who's averaging 5 points a game, he's a wing player. We are stacked on the wing with players that we have to hope can shoot well, and they're inconsistent at the very best, right? Then when you add in, so I'm talking about the construction of the team. Now let's talk about who we face. Yeah, we have to face the Jazz twice. We have to face the Mavericks twice. We got to face the Mavericks twice. We have to face the Heat, the Bucks, the Clippers, the Nets. Boy, and then we got to play teams like the Pelicans, who really, they're not as good as some of these other teams. However, we have nothing that can stop Zion Williamson, even if we were 100%, right? We are going to get demolished in the post. It's going to be a layup line in the key. Everybody's going to have fun, dunks. It's all going to be nice and fun, right? Once you rotate the ball 2 or 3 times, we can be lost. We can be hurting, right? And we have no one that can say take over a game or lead the troop, so to speak, when things start to get rough. So, guys, when I tell you that I can hope for what we have, we have 13 away games in the next month. Or the next 16, 17 games, we have 13 away games. I would be amazed if after this month we're still in the playoff race.
Whoa.
Well, I'm finished. I would just be happy to be in top 8, really.
So here's my thing then, Marsha. All right. We are accustomed having former Rockets coach Devin Blair on the show, and I think he was here on the program less than a month ago, if memory serves me correct.
Oh,
It seems that thing has left us temporarily. So I'm going to then pose another question to you. There's a school of thought that, okay, trying to look on the bright side of things, this might actually work in the Lakers' favor because it gives LeBron James time to rest, to rebound in time for the playoffs. Subscribe to that.
Wait, hold on. I think he just come back.
Yeah.
So sorry. Yes, I got knocked off. Someone called. I don't know how, and I have my settings to reject. So sorry. Yes, let me get back to where I was, right? So I think less than a month ago, Houston coach Devin Blair did say that no teams, in all fairness to them, that are built or equipped to handle the absence of one of their top two players, or especially both. And well, Marshall, I saw you took a shot at Neil by saying the Lakers are essentially a two-man team. Well, yes.
I saw trying to.
Well, yes. And here's the thing about it, Marsha. The team is well constructed in that regard because every single player, with the exception of Dennis Schroeder, is uniquely or purposely attached to one of the two-star players. And I'll explain what I mean. Every single player on that squad serves a particular role in relation to one of the two-star players, if not both. So when you look at Contavious Caldwell Pope and Alex Caruso and Wesley Matthews, those players are there for the sake of spacing the floor for LeBron James and Anthony Davis, both of whom want to score at the rim. You look at somebody like Marc Gasol, he is there to defend bigger players so that Anthony Davis does not need that wear and tear marking, fights. Like, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like the physical nature inside the paint. And you can go on, same thing with Markieff Morris. Then you look at someone like I want to say Montrezl Harrell. His purpose is there as a roll option off of a pick and roll LeBron James pick and roll, or somebody to patrol the baseline, waiting for LeBron James dump off, or to clean up any mess on the offensive glass and put in. So each of these role players serve a particular purpose as it relates to those two players. When those two players are obviously out, now you're asking these players to do things that they are not asked to do or not equipped to do. And instead, the only player there that is not there for purpose attached to either LeBron James or Anthony Davis is Dennis Schroeder, because he can create his own shot, he can run his own offense, etc., etc. So let's get to the pertinent numbers. I searched the internet, and for some odd reason, I could not find what his net rating is when Anthony Davis and LeBron James are both off the floor. But I can only hazard a guess that it is something like a minus double-digit big number.
Mm-hmm.
The other important number is that Neil's Lakers are only 3.5 games up on Portland for the all-important 6th seed. And that 6th seed is important this year because, as we know, 7 through 10 will play in a play-in tournament. That is something an older Lakers team that has LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Marc Gasol, Contavious Caldwell Pope, they do not want to go through that because that's additional games before you get into the wear and tear of the playoffs. So here's where I'm going to actually be of some sort, give Neil some sort of positivity going into this. Firstly, the Lakers are built to win the playoffs. So whatever happens in the regular season really doesn't matter once they get into the playoffs. Once they get in the postseason and both men are healthy, then it's fine. It doesn't matter on if they have to play on the road or, if they don't have a lot of playoff series at home. Here's the next encouraging thing for Neil's Lakers. This year, as up to last month, if memory serves me correct, home teams have only won 51.7% of the contest. Basically, home and away games are a wash. Like, anyone this season without fans can win at any given venue. See, if the Lakers can avoid the play-in tournament, do just enough to get the 6th seed, even if they have to play 3 straight playoff series on the road. 1, your team is built to win on the road, and 2, this season without fans in attendance, we don't know what the postseason may bring if NBA may relax that schedule. But if there are no fans, then it tells me then that the Lakers don't really have to worry about, going in a visiting arenas, especially if one of those series you anticipate will be against the Clippers because you share the same building. So this month is going to be rough, especially when Neil mentions you have to play the Jazz twice, you have to play the Heat, you have to play the Mavericks, you have to play the Clippers.
Nets.
The Nets.
The
That's going to
Bucks.
get rough. Those are all losses. You can mark those down. Those are all
No,
losses.
I have the margin right here. I just
Yeah,
let you know.
like there's no fluke in a win here or there because Lakers
Nah.
are not constructed without those two players, as I just mentioned, to win games like that. They're not. Their talent is not there.
Nope.
What can save them though, Marsha and Neil? The buyout market is coming up. I suspect that somebody like Andre Drummond will be there to be picked up because if the Cavaliers haven't found a trade partner for him yet, likely they'll just buy him out. And then a title contending team like the Lakers can pick him up for cheap without having to spend money or give up assets that the Lakers don't have. And then I guess we'll get to it later on in the show. The trade deadline is coming up. And I think you can use Kyle Kuzma as a piece to dangle for somebody. And here is my first hot take for the night. Without LeBron James for a month, I would dangle and hold on to your seat for this one, Neil. I will dangle Kyle Kuzma for somebody like Lonzo Ball. Because you really do need somebody that can create for the rest of the team. And it sounds weird, but you need an additional playmaker outside of Dennis Schroeder to create for that team.
But here's the problem with that though, Justin. When you get your playmaker, you giving up 15 points a game for Kyle Kuzma. So granted, you want a playmaker, but do you want a playmaker
at the expense of your best bench scorer? Yeah, weird, isn't it?
I'm just saying. So that's all good in theory, but right now I think we would have to look down the bench. They don't even know who we would get. I mean, I was thinking about this, and I was saying Kyle Kuzma. Yeah, I don't know what to say here. I don't know what to say here. That's true.
Well, Neil, when Justin dropped out, I have posed a question. If you could touch on it very quickly, how do you feel about that school of thought that there is some silver lining from this for the Lakers in that with LeBron James being out now, it means, he might be a bit fitter, well rested ahead of the playoffs should they make it. Is that any?
I mean, yes, right? I mean, yes, he is recovering from an injury, high ankle sprain. It will give him time to just rest, recuperate. We know LeBron is notorious for taking care of his body at no expense. So I think it will serve them better. But my fear is that he is. I mean, it's funny. We keep saying he's in year 18, and we use this as a kind of a springboard to saying, oh, he is in year 18 and he's doing all of these things, but he has a high ankle sprain, and LeBron just does play heavy minutes, and he does play a style of basketball that is very taxing on your body. So what I would say is that I can only hope that this gives him time to rest, recuperate. We know he's going to be taking care of his body and working out and being in the gym and those kinds of things. I just hope that when he comes back in a month's time, we would be that's 50-something games. We would have probably another 16 games left in the season. I mean, I can only hope that he's well rested, he's well recuperated, and he can make that deep playoff run. Hopefully Anthony Davis is back, and hopefully, God forbid, we don't have any more in. Knock on wood.
No, Justin, if LeBron does indeed miss, the next month or so plus, how do you think this will impact the whole MVP conversation? Could he still be considered or still be in the running for the MVP title?
No, Marsha, because reality is, as I mentioned earlier, the likelihood the Lakers may even struggle just to stay in the top 6. And while we've seen in Russell Westbrook somebody who was given the MVP award for a team that did not have home court advantage in the playoffs, this may be a situation where we'll may have to go through the play-in tournament. And I don't see a scenario where voters will vote for a player from a team that is not outright in the playoffs as in the first top 6 seeds. So I don't see that happening. So I'm guessing, obviously, then you'd have to ask who would be the front runner. And here is such a joke, like life just comes back at you full circle and so fast. less than a month ago, again, Devin Blair was on this program, and he put James Harden as his MVP front runner, and we all laughed, saying that it was a homer pick, obviously, because he's close to James Harden and a former Houston employee. Well, you know what? Life has now come to say, well, Devin Blair's right. It will be none other than James Harden because, again, the other front runner for the MVP is out with a similar injury, being Joel Embiid. And when you look at what James Harden is doing in Brooklyn, I don't see how a situation where if both Embiid and LeBron James are going to be missing substantial time, that he doesn't win his second MVP award. When you look at it, this is a guy who is leading the league in assists with 11 assists per game, averaging a healthy 25 points, and I think 8 rebounds per. And for a Brooklyn Nets team that is only one game behind the Philadelphia 76ers for the best record in the East, and 17-7, yes, 17-7 without Kevin Durant. That's just amazing. Like, James Harden, for all the knocks you want to say about him not playing defense or how he forced his way out of Houston, James Harden has not been missing any games, unlike his two fellows. Brooklyn, one with an injury and the other for family reasons, continues to miss games. This guy plays every single night and makes sure that, you know, that the Brooklyn Nets are winning games 17-7 without your best player, when they just said teams are not built to win without your best or second best player. And then not only that do we have to justify why James Harden would be MVP, but look no further than the team he's left. That Houston team has now lost 20 straight games without James Harden. So you can see his impact with the team he is currently in and the impact on the team he is currently left. And for all of James Harden's 8 years in Houston, that team has never missed the playoffs, regardless of whether Dwight Howard was there, Chris Paul was there, Russell Westbrook was there. You see, that team never missed the playoffs. Now you subtract James Harden, and that team is going to end with the league's worst record. The situation that we see in Brooklyn and the situation that we see opposed in Houston, all the numbers tell me James Harden is this league's MVP.
And using some of the odds and some of the bookmakers, you're seeing Jokic's name up there as well. Neil, any thoughts of Jokic being considered for the MVP title?
I mean, of course, when you look at Nikola Jokic, you know, he is averaging 27, 11, and 9, 27, 11, and 9. He's doing it on 57% shooting from the field, shooting 42% from 3. He is playing extremely well. The Nuggets are they're in the playoff race. You know, granted they're a bit low. He is in there. Damian Lillard is another consideration. You know, when you look at he averages 30.3 points per game. Granted, Portland is lower down in the standings as well, but you know, Giannis is always going to be in that conversation. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Justin. With what he said. Nikola Jokic is playing very good basketball, probably some of his best at basketball so far. You know, what I do find strange though, and I like to hear Justin's talk on it, right? We have Donovan Mitchell, who is playing for the Jazz. They're in number one seed. And he's not in the MVP talk, MVP race. So I find that pretty interesting. He has some pretty decent stats near some of these other guys like Damian Lillard and Nikola Jokic. But when they look at team placement and they look at how he is playing and how that team is playing, right? I mean, we can get into that anyhow. But it is interesting to see just how wide open, well, it's not really wide open, but James Harden, you know, it's just interesting to see how these players are playing at such a high level. And, you know, we may see another situation where the MVP comes from someone who is not from the number 1 or 2 seed team in their conference.
So you asked me about the Donovan Mitchell situation, and that is why, and I'm sure again we touched on that when Devin was on the show. I have a problem with this MVP award because it just comes down to a lot of times media storylines. And so you correctly mentioned the Jazz have the league's best overall record. Their best player is putting up some decent numbers, and nowhere is he in the conversation for MVP. Now, granted, his numbers individually don't match up to somebody, again, LeBron James, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Nikola Jokic, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, so on and so forth. But you would figure this is the league's best team, and the league's best or the team's best player should at least get a mention. And let us not sidestep the situation. Utah Jazz are not a media darling, and they never will be. And a lot of it comes down to the market that they play in. I mean, it is what it is. But also, I think to be fair to the media, you have to ask how much of what Donovan Mitchell does leads directly to the success of the Utah Jazz. Now, obviously, he is their best player individually and, a vital cog to what they do. But for the last 3 years, we've seen that this is a defensive juggernaut. And when you talk about Utah Jazz and their defense, you start at Rudy Gobert and what he does on the interior and what he does on pick and rolls to, ward off ball handlers from getting to the paint. So then even as Donovan Mitchell may indeed be their best player, is he their most impactful? Yes, the team has gotten a lot better offensively, shooting a lot more threes. The team has modernized its offense. But the reality of the situation is when you say the Utah Jazz, it starts with defense. And quite frankly, Donovan Mitchell isn't that great of a defender, but Rudy Gobert is as a two-time defensive player of the year. And so I guess when people are talking about MVP, they're not really going to look at Donovan Mitchell because they will say the strength or the backbone of this team is really their defense. And what part or how big of an impact does Donovan Mitchell have to that end of the floor?
So, Neil, with your Lakers now essentially out of contention for that number one seed that many would have expected them to be, who's your pick, or who do you think is the most likely team to wrap up that number one spot coming out of the West?
The Utah Jazz. I mean, when you look at that Utah Jazz, you look at how they're playing this season. They're number one on defense. They're number three on offense. They have the top record in the West. You have 6 players in double figures in scoring. You have a defensive juggernaut in Rudy Gobert, who's averaging a double-double for them. You have a potential 6-man of the year candidate in Jordan Clarkson. You have Bogdan Bogdanovic, who is also playing really well. You have Joe Ingles still chipping in with about 12 points per game. So, I mean, from top to bottom, man, when you have 6 players, that is what your starters plus a guy off the bench. Mike Conley is shooting the ball really well as well. So when you look at all of that and you look at just how well they're playing as a unit, I think they've won 16 home games out of 18. They've won 14 away games out of 23. I mean, they're playing really well. And I think this is what will keep Donovan Mitchell from being an MVP candidate, just to touch back on the last topic, because it is as simple as I think that team can still be successful without Donovan Mitchell. Granted, 25 points a game is nothing to sneeze at. However, I do think because they have other players that can fill up the stat sheet and get things done, that may work against him. But yeah, I mean, the Jazz are a great team. They're playing really well. They're, blowing out teams that they have to blow. And it's great team basketball, great chemistry coming off of last year with all that was happening with Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. So, I really do see Utah Jazz take.
My Phoenix Suns. No, I really don't mean that.
I was waiting for you to say that.
I really don't mean that. Neil said, ditto. It's really the Utah Jazz. They went through what would have been the hard part of their schedule in the first half and still came away with the league's best record. Neil mentioned they're number 1 in defense, number 3 overall in offense. I know they still have the best record. They're probably their biggest contender for that number 1 seed in the West now is without their 2 best players for probably another month. But most importantly of all, Marsh and Neil, they have an extremely easy strength of schedule record coming up. When you look, their remaining opponents, I think, have a combined, I think they're below 500 by quite a distance. I think it's 0.475, something like that, which is, I think, the third easiest strength of schedule left for the entire NBA. I think the only teams that have a easier strength of schedule are the Washington Wizards, who will not make the playoffs more than likely, and the Dallas Mavericks. So like when you look at that, a team that has already beaten most of the best teams in the league already, and then they have a very easy strength of schedule for the rest of the season, and they have no injuries that we know of per se. They're hitting on all cylinders already. Then it's straightforward. I think the Utah Jazz roll to that number 1 seed overall in the West.
So, guys, now some other injury news, unfortunately, dominating the league. Lamelo Ball and that broken wrist, unfortunately. He was essentially set to be the shoe-in for the Rookie of the Year title. Now that he's out for the rest of the season with that broken wrist, do you think that will affect his chances of actually clinching that title? Justin, I'm going to start with you.
Do I affect it? Probably yes. Do I think it should? No. Reality is like there's not much competition for the award. Y'all know my love for Tyrese Halliburton, and it's not just because he represents in 920, all things Wisconsin. But
don't do that.
All things Wisconsin, you. But the reason I really like Tyrese Halliburton is because, and y'all know, I cannot understand why teams passed up on him in the draft. A very big guard who can mark both guard positions. Elite shooter already in the NBA, a very gifted playmaker. This is not a guy that you pass up on. And if memory serves me correct, I think he is like second or third. I think third in scoring for all rookies per game, and second in assists. But he's second in assists behind Lonzo Ball. And when you look at the numbers Lonzo Ball has put up this season, I want to say he is first overall in assists and second in per game numbers in rebounding and scoring. I think he's averaging like 15.9 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, and over 6 assists per game. When you add those numbers up, 15, 5, and 6, there have only been 8 other rookies all time in the NBA to finish a season with 15.6 save rebounds. All but Penny Hardaway ended up winning the award. All but Penny Hardaway ended up winning the award. And granted, obviously, the percentage of games that Lonzo would have played will be far. Getting the balls mixed up. That LaMelo would play will be significantly less than those who have won the award before, in terms of percentage and number of games. But the reason why I'd still give it to LaMelo is because the gap between he and Tyrese Halliburton, while as much as I love Tyrese Halliburton, is so huge. Because are we willing to say then that we want to give a guy Rookie of the Year for averaging 12.4 points per game and 5.1 assists per game? And for me, no. And again, this is no knock on Tyrese Halliburton, because you both have heard me rave about him on this show, and you know how much I truly love the kid. But what LaMelo Ball has done, especially on a Hornets team that is on the cusp or the brink of making the playoffs, I think they are the very worst. They are going to end up in the play-in tournament. While Tyrese Halliburton's Kings are not even in the play-in tournament as we speak right now. So you're going to give a guy whose numbers pale in comparison to LaMelo on a team that loses a lot, as opposed to a rookie. Yes, he's not going to finish the season, but his impact alone pushed Charlotte to playoff contention with historic numbers where only one other player who had those numbers did not win the Rookie of the Year award. I'm sorry, people, but LaMelo Ball should still be a shoo-in for the Rookie of the Year.
What he said. Yeah, I mean, when you look at all the other rookies, right? You look at Tyrese Halliburton, you look at Anthony Edwards. They're playing really well, right? They have numbers that are comparable to LaMelo Ball. However, their teams are in the doldrums of their respective conferences, which is the Western Conference, right? The Minnesota Timberwolves are last in the West, and as Sacramento, as Justin said, they're not even in the play-in tournament. So, they are. It is going to be rough. to give it to someone other than Lamelo Ball. Lamelo Ball has the Charlotte Hornets in playoff contention. He has them, excitement around Charlotte other than Michael Jordan. He does score the ball well. His stats are what I have them written down here. He's shooting the ball at 38% from three, which is, decent, 45 overall. His assist number is 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 16 points. He's playing really well. I don't have a problem with him getting there. I mean, it sucks that he is injured, but it makes sense.
But I'm going to pose another question to you. Let's say we take out of the picture. If we had to go between, the other two who seem to be the two closest in Edwards and Halliburton, which one would get the nod for you?
There's not a question of which is better, but which is not as bad as. When you look at, Justin said it, Tyrese Halliburton, his team could potentially be in the play-in tournament. They're not last in the NBA. So, I mean, if we were to take out Lamelo Ball and we really had to give it the Rookie of the Year, Tyrese Halliburton would get it. I mean, I look at Anthony Edwards' numbers. His numbers are pretty good too, but he's not shooting the ball very well. Under 40 from the field, 31% from three. Free throw is 70 something, so 70 whatever it is. But the point is that Tyrese Halliburton would get it if it doesn't go to LaMelo.
No, I know how the NBA works. If they don't give it to LaMelo Ball, it will probably go to Anthony Edwards just because of name recognition. The average person does not know who Tyrese Halliburton is or who he plays for. The situation where, everyone would have seen the dunk of the year already with Anthony Edwards' huge baseline dunk. But I'm with Neil. If push comes to shove and you can't vote for LaMelo Ball, it would have to be Tyrese Halliburton for me. Because firstly, as Neil correctly mentioned, there are numbers or things that Anthony Edwards right now is struggling with, clearly, and that all relates to shooting. What the Kings are asking Tyrese Halliburton to do in significant minutes coming off of the bench, he's not struggling in any department of the game. They ask him to defend both guard positions, and he's already proven to be a very stout defender, whether he's marking point guards, whether he's marking shooting guards. He is shooting the three, I don't want to say 43% as a rookie. These are elite numbers. He is averaging, and this is again coming off the bench, over 5 assists per game as a bench player. Again, these are elite numbers. Tyrese Halliburton has proven to be an extremely good defender, an elite jump shooter, and a gifted playmaker. So I'm just going to have to give it to Tyrese Halliburton. But it depends on the question you ask. Who should I give it to if not LaMelo Ball? Tyrese Halliburton. Who will the NBA give it to? Probably Anthony Edwards because of name and star recognition.
Fair enough. So Justin, another question for you. Taking a look at the overall situation in the NBA, the Atlanta Hawks, they're, surprising some. Are you surprised by what you're seeing from the Hawks so far?
No, the surprise how bad they were stumbling out the gates. And I know a lot of that had to do with people missing time due to COVID and injury concerns, which I thought at the time, as you all know, I thought it was tough for them to fire Lloyd Pierce when you put everything in totality. But the reality is, I guess he did deserve his firing because you've seen what the Hawks have done since they've replaced him with Nate McMillan, which is an 8-0 record. And right now they are moving from, I think, at one stage 10th or 11th in the East. They are 4th. So if the regular season were to finish today, knock on wood, due to some COVID-19 concerns, the Atlanta Hawks would be hosting a playoff series. And that is in no large, you have to give all the credit to Nate McMillan. So let me start by saying I am not surprised because clearly we're in win mode or win now mode from their offseason. When you look at what they did in the offseason, we addressed that on previous shows. They went after your favorite guy, playoff Rajon Rondo. They went after
hate on this program there.
No such thing as playoff Rondo. But They went
They
after
are
Clint
front
Capello. They acquired Bogdanovich, and they also acquired Danilo Gallinari. These are all hardened veterans, and you figured, well, if you're paying big money for the collection of these four players, then it is playoffs or bust. And 10th and 11th isn't doing it. So when I saw that acquisition of talent, I figured they would be somewhere in mid-table in the East. But for them to go 8-0 is a bit surprising. But also, equally as I was, high on the talent they acquired, I'm even higher on the coach that is Nate McMillan, because I thought it was severe what Indianapolis did in letting him go. And now you see the results. He has taken Atlanta from 11th to 4th, and then look at the Indy team he left, who has made the playoffs every single year under Nate McMillan. Right now, they are, I think, 10th or 11th on the outside looking in. And this is, again, no large, you can't give Nate McMillan enough credit. You saw what he did in terms of turning around Portland before they moved on from him. Again, you saw what he did in turning around Indianapolis, and then you see where they are now. This guy is just a great teacher of basketball. If you have a young team, you have young players, you want to teach the fundamentals, teach the understanding of basketball to Nate McMillan is your guy. The knock on Nate is that, well, he can teach young players and get them to the playoffs. He may not necessarily be the guy to put you over the hump to win you a title or to get you deep in the playoffs. But to that, I will say this. While Nate McMillan has never advanced far in the playoffs, we know winning NBA titles comes down to elite talent. And Nate McMillan, the last time I checked, has never
I've
coached.
never had that kind of talent to work with.
He has never coached Kobe Bryant. He's never coached LeBron James. He's never coached Kevin Durant. He's never coached Steph Curry, unless we're talking about Team USA. This guy takes young players and just overachieves with them constantly. So I am not a fan of giving interim head coaches the title, because we've seen too often in sports, while a team may do so well with an interim head coach, typically that is like a short burst, whether it be let's prove management wrong, let's prove the old head coach that we're good, blah, blah, blah. And that typically does not last long. Like in professional sports, you can't win with emotion alone. The fact is, Nate McMillan does not deserve to be an interim head coach in anybody's team. This man deserves a head coaching job. And I'm so glad to see that, Atlanta had the common sense to move and pick up Nate McMillan quickly. And there's another point I want to make, but I won't be too long with it because I've already gone on an extremely long soliloquy. This points to, and we talk about this in the NFL as it comes to the hard break that black head coaches get in the NFL. I never mention it in the NBA, but I think it's even worse simply because in the NBA, this is supposed to be the forward-thinking league where that is so far miles ahead of the NBA in terms of understanding racial equality and treating minorities a lot better than what we see in the NFL. And yet you see there are not many more head coaches in the NBA than really in the NFL. And one by one, we are seeing the few head coaches that are black getting fired unjustly. Well, I don't want to say this, but a lot of white head coaches who have not proven anything are getting big jobs. And you can look no further than over there in Brooklyn. Steve Nash, well, my Hall of Fame point guard, and I rate him highly for the offensive mind he has. Steve Nash has never coached at any level and never coached anyone. And his first gig is to coach Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, with James Harden in the wings coming in. Somebody that Nate McMillan, who has proved his dues over and over and over again, whether it be as a hard-nosed player in the NBA and now as a coach who has pushed Portland to the playoffs, who's pushed Indy to the playoffs, and now is going to do the same with Atlanta, has never had the chance to coach the elite talent that somebody like Steve Nash with no coaching background is currently getting in Brooklyn. And for me, Marshall and Neil, that is a systemic problem across all sports.
So Neil, what about you? Are you, did you expect this turnaround in Atlanta, or are you surprised by what you're seeing?
I would say that right now I'm surprised by what I'm seeing. Only because, just like Justin, the surprise was how they started this season. When they started this season so lucky, I was like, yo, I don't know if that team could string together some wins to get up into the. I mean, granted they're playing in the East, but I was still saying, there's something that isn't gelling or clicking team that translates into wins. Now, when you look at that team from top to bottom, right? I mean, you have 7 players in double figures, led by Trae Young, who is out tonight. Unfortunately, Cam Reddish is out as well. But you have Clint Capella, who's playing well. Cam Reddish is finally rounded into some semblance of form from what we expected from him. You got veteran Danilo Gallinari, who is playing really well. You have Herter. Was the other boy? Kevin Herter and Hunter, Hunter and Hunter. So I mean, the players have John Collins. They have players that are playing really well. You have veteran guys on the team like playoff Rondo, Richard Rod, and it is just interesting to see how they're going to go about now, especially that you have players like Trae Young and Cam Reddish out now. Yes, they can win games, especially in the East. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that this stretch here is going to show where they want to go in terms of playoffs and team chemistry and camaraderie and playing through. I echo Justin's statements about Nate McMillan. He is one of the great basketball minds we have in this league right now. And he has taken them and molded them. He does a bit of development of players as well as coaching the game with the X and O's to get wins. So when you take all of this, I would say that I didn't expect them to be in the position to have to win a bunch of games to get back into the playoff contention to get to fourth. I am surprised that they won it. Very impressive as well, with some big wins over some quality teams. So, I would say that I'm impressed by them, but right now I would say I need to see how they're going to weather this storm with the amount of injuries that they have, as well as we're going into the back half, as they say, of the NBA season, the dog days. Granted, it's not a situation like we have in previous seasons because we are playing 72 games, but it's still going to be interesting to see how these guys, like in the next month and a half, how they really, plug in and focus and lock in.
Well, guys, with the trade deadline looming, you're hearing all of the rumors, and even the Hawks, they're being linked to Lonzo Ball and Marcus Smart, side of that. But with the deadline looming, where do you expect the most movement to come from? Who are the targets that you expect to see on the move? Justin?
The thing is, of the last couple of years, the NBA has gotten the nickname the No Balls Association, simply because nothing has happened at these trade deadlines. You hear so much promise. But I suspect because I want to say things are so much more wide open now, I brought up the stat that essentially home teams are washed when they're playing at home. This title may be up for grabs, especially with the health concerns in the Los Angeles Lakers. I want to see so many and I may be just setting up myself for another disappointing trade deadline, but all of these rumors, I expect most of them to pan out. So I'll start with Kyle Lowry, expiring contract. I don't think that Toronto, especially as they are not in a position to win anything, obviously, with this team, I do not expect them to let Kyle Lowry leave for nothing. So I believe he will end up on the Miami Heat. My guy Lonzo Ball, who I referenced earlier by mistake, you hear the rumors of him being attached to Chicago, the aforementioned Atlanta Hawks. I'm not sure that the Atlanta Hawks is really a fit. And then also the Clippers. I'm going to say the Clippers don't have anything via trade assets to get Lonzo, or nothing that the Pelicans will want. So I'm going to predict that he ends up with Chicago. That makes the most sense, and they have the assets to acquire him. And him paired with Zach LaVine, prevents or alleviates the ball handling from Zach LaVine and makes him, allows him to focus more on scoring the basketball, which he really wants to do. I think the most interesting trade target for me is Aaron Gordon. And I can see him on a place like your Celtics. What do they use to acquire him? I don't know. And I know Danny Ainge is very frugal, for lack of a better term. He's not
Frugal
one
is
to
my
pull.
word.
Yeah, well, we are on a children-friendly show, so I will let's say frugal. And yeah, but Aaron Gordon on the Celtics for me makes more sense. Will it happen? Probably not. But you need a big body, like because big bodies on your team. Sorry, Marsha, are really just not good. If Daniel Tice is your best big man, then you know you have problems. I am not going to be like Jeff Rubin a couple of weeks ago and make people on this show believe that Daniel Tice is a good player. He's really not. So Aaron Gordon or your team with a team that obviously has quote unquote title aspirations, I think that makes more sense. I do not have a clue where Victor Oladipo is going, other than to say I know he has to go. There is not a situation where Thursday comes and we find Victor Oladipo still in Houston. Like that is not a possibility. I just cannot see that happening. Either that or
Put another.
I plan to put a lens on that one because the Houston general manager would want firing for keeping Victor Oladipo on a team that is likely going to end up with the worst record in the league for a man who does not want to play there. There's one more player I'm missing. I mentioned Kyle Lowry. Did I say Kyle Lowry? On the Miami Heat, there is
Lowry, you're the same guy, Halliburton.
No.
Not Halliburton. Sorry, not Halliburton. Who was the guy? From Sacramento. Oh my goodness gracious! My mind is drawing a blank right now.
Well, mine is too because I don't see Sacramento really moving on from anyone at this moment. So yeah, like I think you're gonna see a busy trade deadline day. So I'll go through again. I believe Aaron Gordon should end up in Boston. Whether that happens or not is left to be seen. My guy Lonzo Ball in Chicago, alongside Zach LaVine. Kyle Lowry in Miami, that makes more sense. And they have assets to give up. I think you're hearing rumors that they will send back Goran Dragic. The only issue is that they're going to have to let go of one of their youngsters that they do like, whether it be Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero. And I am a big Tyler Hero fan. Again, shout out to the 920. But, right, yeah, Kyle Lowry gives them, that playoff performer, great and gritty defender, another jump shooter, and a playmaker. And apparently he has a very, very, very close relationship with Jimmy Butler. So him going to Miami just makes all the sense. So I see Marsha and Neil a very, very active trade deadline, but knowing my luck, I'm going to be disappointed just like I was with the 9 episodes of WandaVision. Go ahead, Neil.
This boy. Yeah, so I actually agree. No, I don't necessarily agree. I agree with those are the players that are going to move. I don't necessarily agree with where they're going. Like Kyle Lowry, for example, I could see him going. He would be an interesting fit for the Clippers more so than Lonzo Ball, because to me, Lonzo, you want someone that is a playmaker, but you also want someone that can get up in players. You want a veteran. You want someone to be very aggressive on the defensive end and very aggressive on the offensive end with the experience and the poise. You've been to the championship already. So to me, Kyle Lowry fits the Clippers and what they're looking to achieve in this season of making it to the finals, the Western Conference Finals, and making it to the finals. So I think Kyle Lowry would be a good fit for him. Aaron Gordon is a conundrum to me. He demanded the trade. I mean, I can't see him going to the Celtics, adding a bit of front court to them. I can't think of many other teams that he could go in terms of playoff contenders. But he will be moved. Let's go down the line. We go down the line to Lonzo. I actually think Lonzo stays. Because that Pelicans team they're not going to make a big splash for in this season. The best they can hope for is the play-in tournament, and even then, I don't think that they will get further past that. They do have a great nucleus in Williamson. You surround him with players like I can't believe I'm saying this, but players like Slim Reaper, Brandon Ingram. He's a really good player as well, right? And they do have good pieces. Steven Adams is just who you need, a person to kind of muck it up, be in the paint, disrupt shots, and grab rebounds. So I think they do have a good core. I think that Lonzo, I just don't know what's wrong with the kid, but he is quite fine where he is. I don't think he's suited for a playoff team. Victor Oladipo, I actually think he will go to the Miami Heat. That's an interesting thing I could see there, where he, to me, he strikes me as similar to Jimmy Butler, with that being a match made in heaven in terms of what Victor Oladipo is all about, his professionalism, his work ethic, the culture surrounding Miami, and it gives another star next to Jimmy Butler, and it gives a bit more punch in the front court for the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat now, they're what, Justin, fifth or sixth in the East?
Fifth
in the East. So, Victor Oladipo will help stem the tide, and probably they can move up a slot or two, maybe even challenge for the third seed. But yeah, I do think that those players will move. In terms of players like Andre Drummond, in terms of no clue, I think, as Justin said, it's going to be a very interesting and exciting trade deadline come Thursday. A lot of players moving, a lot of big name players moving. So it would just be interesting to see where they go on. How my Lakers. I don't know. We can't trade for nobody, but
because I'd say Victor Oladipo really makes sense in your Lakers right now. Like
yeah, but who we trading for? Who traded for Victor Oladipo?
Well, I mean, you do have a trade asset, one singular in Kyle Kuzma. And,
we can't even trade Magic because Magic is a LA Dodger now. So we can't even trade Magic, boss.
But you could likely, package something around Kyle Kuzma, because at least that fits their rebuilding timeline. That's a young player, Oladipo, a bit older, and you need all the help you can get with LeBron and Anthony Davis missing time. And even when they do come back, that is a good component to have coming off the bench in terms of somebody who can create their own shot and in a way create for others. Not so much, but at least somebody that LeBron James doesn't have to look to create or get a shot for.
You'll see.
We will see, and us Celtics fans will be waiting to see what Danny Ainge does, if the books will remain closed, or maybe he'll crack them open a bit and slot somebody inside. We never know. But guys, that's a good point to wrap up tonight's show as we looked at all things NBA. Thank you so much for joining us. Justin, you have the mailbag coming up this Thursday as well. Anything special in the pipeline?
No, we play it by ear, but probably looking at, again, another wild NFL free agency. It is wild. Money is throwing away. And you would figure that it wouldn't be throwing away considering the salary cap went down, which, again, is another laugher for me. Because as we talked about off the show, the ridiculous amount of money that the NFL just negotiated in their new TV deals. So at some point, we'll see that salary cap rise again. And I guess part of the reason we're seeing, or at least that's the reason we're seeing these players taking such short contracts, so they can renegotiate when that salary cap goes up. But yeah, you know how we do it on Thursdays. Adam Lewis from the What Offseason Pod joins me on our Instagram Live. And probably we'll be delving into more NFL outside free agency. But Thursday is also the trade deadline. So we'll probably touch on what happens, especially if it's a wild Thursday, touch on some moves, and hopefully we have something to report out of Boston camp when they do indeed get either Aaron Gordon or Nikola Vucevic.
Well, you heard it here first, and you can get the news first on Instagram. Join us on Thursday on our Instagram channel. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. And you're watching us here on YouTube, so I'm hoping that you've already liked this video, subscribed to this channel, and your post notifications are on, so that once we go live, you get that nice pop-up saying, you know what, the gang is live. Join us on YouTube. But that's it for us here on this Just In. I'm Marsha Boyce.
I am Justin, hated WandaVision Marvel.
I am still the Neloy.
Saying good night.
Good night, everybody.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king of that. against the game. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes?